entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Road to Growth listeners. Today I have Patrick. Say the Touhey, right?
Patrick Touhey, yes.
Touhey. Okay, you probably go by Coach Touhey, out there, but I'll call you Patrick throughout the podcast. He's an author. He's a coach. He's runs an insurance team, a wide variety of things. And it's kind of interesting that we're having you on today because you have such a strong background in coaching. And one of my most recent guests was a collegiate athlete, and he was kind of converted that mindset over to his business today. So it'd be interesting to see how your coaching business or a coaching career has transitioned over to your current business. So thank you, Patrick, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Vinny. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and visit with your audience. I'm really excited about being here today.
Being that you have, usually with guests like yourself that have a wide variety of hats, how would you describe yourself when you meet someone? What's your elevator pitch? If someone goes, "Hey, Patrick, what do you do?" How would you describe yourself?
The best way I would go about describing myself is just a real passionate commitment to influence and mentor anyone that I come in contact with to, reach their fullest potential in who they are, not only in their craft, but more importantly, or as importantly, Vinny, in who they are as a person. I think both have to be in the equation in order to build a powerful presence. And so whether it's in the athletic field, which by the way, I love immensely, I have a lot of passion for athletics because I do have a long-standing coaching career. But I also, am that focused and passionate about where we are in the world and so many similarities that I see that are missing in respect to building a passionate team. So, but that's how I would define myself. I want to have this influence on all people to know, one, that they're very special, to know that none of us, and that, there's a powerful part of who they are that is unlimited. I want to help try to influence and mentor that.
Well, let's rewind. Who was a young Patrick? Big into sports, big into coaching, big into helping people. Who was a young Patrick?
Yeah, so as a young person growing up, I had a tough background. So to be quite honest, and my father, I'm one of 10 siblings, and my dad was a unemployable alcoholic, very abusive, and it was a tough environment. We were in poverty, lived on food stamps and welfare, and sports was the catalyst. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but it really isn't, Vinny, when it comes to the Touhey family. There were 6 boys and 4 girls in the family, and athletic allowed us to have some resemblance of a mentoring in some way and a consistency in some way of discipline and responsibility that we were not getting at home. And so although I struggled very much academically, some of the decisions I made and things of that nature, athletics saved our lives. And it isn't a cliche. That's how powerful it was in our experience. And I will tell you, with all my best efforts as I moved along as a young man, I too became an alcoholic. I have 30 years of sobriety, and I have a panic and anxiety disorder that I've worked through. I did all of that with this goal of saying to myself, Patrick, although these are hard life lessons and these are difficult things to have to work through, I am not going to repeat the cycle that I grew up in. And so I did a lot of self-reflection and a lot of, self-work to be able to overcome those dark moments and the demons, to learn some lessons around how does one get to truly be passionate about what they do? How does one truly begin to have this confidence about themselves and to build this idea of compassion and empathy, and also be able to execute that for others? And, fast forward, Vinny, I built a multi-million-dollar business that I sold back in 2009. The highly, coaching career. I had a very close relationship with my brother Kevin, who actually started this work many years ago. I hired him to work with my teams because I saw the benefits and the values that he was bringing to the organizations and teams he was working with in developing teammates that just loved each other to a whole different level and were very passionate about what they did and excited about building their craft to become, the best that's out there. And so when I saw him do his work, Vinny, it became very apparent to me how much similarities between the two of us. My brother passed of stage 4 lung cancer roughly 5 years ago, and I promised him that I would continue this work. And he asked me to work with some of his existing clients, which I currently do, and I'm very grateful for the work he began, the legacy he left, and me, and allowing me the opportunity to continue on.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. So, Ken, 9 siblings. You have 9 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
10 altogether.
Yeah.
And you were dealing with alcoholism, kind of following, I guess, the path that your father laid out. Were you the only one out of the other siblings that dealt with those issues?
Yeah, great question. So there are actually 3 recovering alcoholics in our family, and we are all in recovery, and we all have the shortest amount of time is over 25 years. So yes, it affected many siblings in our family, and I'm so proud of my brothers who have, made a decision to, let's change this cycle. Let's not repeat this. Let's make a commitment to each other that it doesn't have to be this way. It just does not have to be this way, and help each other, motivate each other, lean on each other. Let's change this. And it's a commitment we made to each other. I was 25 years old when I walked into the rooms of AA. So I wasn't in my 30s, 40s, and I was a very young man when I made that decision to say, I'm not going to do this.
Now there's, a popular saying, right? Misery loves company.
Yeah.
Right. So what was the factor that allowed you and your siblings that were dealing with alcoholism to make a change?
Yeah. So we were exposed to people, again, through athletics, who mentored a different way of things. And they showed us what, quote unquote, a normal life might look like. But most importantly, because here's the thing, Benny, when you grow up in that kind of environment, you just, self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm no good. That was a common message from my father. Amount to nothing. You're stupid. There's a bunch of things going on that formulate this impression of yourself and this belief of who you are that is ingrained and very powerful. And so to undo that, you have to be exposed to mentors and influencers who say, that's not the truth. That's not the truth. This is who you are, Patrick. And this is what being responsible looks like. This is what success looks like. This is someone that I'm telling you, you're a special young man and I believe in you. And more importantly, that I love you, that you're an intelligent, creative young man with unlimited potential. I had such blessings with the coaches that I was exposed to as I was growing up. They cared much more about me as a person than they did as a player. And I was a very good player. I mean, I played at the high school level, I played at the college level, but they cared for me at a whole different level. That for all of the brothers who had the same kind of coaching, this is where we began to see misery doesn't have to follow the same company, Patrick. You can choose to attach yourself to people who have goals, who strive, who believe in themselves, who believe in you. Because hey, you know this, Vinny, and I teach athletes this, and I teach workers this, that environment is very powerful. So you can be an influencer and a motivator as a leader, but you also have to understand that once they leave you, whether it be in the course of the day or whether it be a couple hours, on the field or the court, some of them are going back to the environment that reinforces misery, that reinforces failure, that reinforces life is not very fun, and all of these things. So this idea of these coaches who had so much patience with me, that my environment was very powerful, they never gave up and they never stopped believing. And that's what planted a seed. Okay. I mean, life wasn't a wonderland after that, but they planted a seed, and it allowed me to take hold at some point and flourish.
Was there a moment either in that transition for either yourself or one of your siblings where you looked at your father, even though with all his shortcomings, he was still your father, that you wanted to get him out of that negative mindset and bring him along?
Yeah, I mean, and tried a number of times, but he just, as when you're dealing with alcoholism, and he had some other issues too, it truly is about, no one is going to change as hard as you might try to do so unless that person themselves, wants to change and own, that they are an alcoholic, because there's a stigma attached to it, right? If you're an alcoholic, that means you don't have it together, you're a bum, you're all these things that you have to try to overcome in respect to the stigma of it. So he was not anywhere close to admitting if you asked him today, he would tell you he wasn't. And my father's been passed for quite some time, but he would never admit to you that he was an alcoholic. And as a result, the efforts to try to do that fell on deaf ears, because he was not ready to own it, nor was he willing to change it. And it's a blessing to those that have that kind of epiphany that I want to change. This is not who I want to be, and I am an alcoholic, and I need to be vulnerable, and I need to reach out for help, and I need people around me to be able to support me and help me grow through it. And it's a lesson around vulnerability. I mean, vulnerability builds trust, Vinny. Trust is seriously lacking in athletic teams, and it's lacking in corporations. Not all of them, but there's many of them that it is lacking. And, so the valuable lesson for me around being humbled enough to say I'm weak in respect to, not that I don't have the ability to be strong, but I've gotten myself in a position where alcohol has driven me to my knees. And I trusted people to do that.
I know it's a totally different ballpark, and the idea of denial in alcoholism compared to maybe denial in an employee or an athlete, that maybe denial that, I'm the best player here, I'm not getting paid enough. I mean, so how do you get those people to come to realization that maybe they're not as good as they think they are, and they need to practice on those things? And how does that work out?
Yeah. So in my book, Create Forever Teammates, I have a chapter called How. And it's an acronym for H is honesty, O is openness, and W-ness. And what the exercise entails is, whether it be an athlete or a worker in the workplace, is, do you have the ability to be able to sit down and take an honest look at your assets and your liabilities? And what we want to work on initially is your liabilities or your shortcomings. So do you have the capacity to have honest self-reflection? If that's the case, because most people can do that. There's some that can't, and they need help along the way, and there's ways to go about doing that. The second is owning it. It's one thing to say, yeah, this is me, but it's somebody else's fault. It's not mine. These are actions and steps I take, but it's because of, if you were in my situation, you would be doing the same things. In other words, a deflection of owning this something that you've been honest about is saying is a shortcoming, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault. So the process of owning it, and the way you get them to do that is to talk about specific actions that they're taking and steps that they're taking, and you watch their language, Vinny. If they're using the word other or someone else, then it's just, it's empathy. Non-judgment is key in the process. Non-judgment. I'm telling you, as a leader, you're going to shut somebody off in a half a second if you even give the impression that you know better, that you're above, that they need to learn from you. You need to listen to me. I have all the answers for you. I know how to fix this. I mean, if that's how you're going to approach each other, you might as well not even take a stab at it. And then it's the willingness. It's, okay, I've been honest. It is on me. I own it. And then the third is, and this is the big step, are you willing to do something? Not you have to do something about it, because it's too many times somebody become rebel-like when I have to tell them you have to do this or else. Okay. And little hairs on the back of my neck stand up and I said, no, I'm not doing that. You can't tell me what to do. Okay. Would you be willing? Would you be willing? If I help you put out a plan of action that are steps that are actually going to change you, where do I have the qualifications or expertise to do that? Well, I've done it my whole life. I've owned my shortcomings. I've owned, so proud of about myself that I did during my alcoholism. And I knew what it took to make the change. And I knew, and I paid attention to the leaders that helped me do that and how they went about doing that. And I will tell you with 100% certainty, Vinny, helping someone change is not an easy thing to do. But what I do know is the percentage of people that I have seen change using this kind of formula is at a very high percentage. And so once you begin that process, you see this enlightened awareness from a player or a coworker to, okay, the wall has come down. They have become humbled to a certain extent. They have allowed for vulnerability, which are all the catalysts to true change. Because you know what, Vinny? We don't have to be macho. We don't have to be, this strong person who never hurts, who never has major problems, who never has really difficult life challenges. And we cannot give any impression that we don't have it all together. So we all walk around, Vinny, pretending. That's why you see in social media kids that will change the appearance of how they look with markups because I have to be perfect. I can't be flawed. I can't have shortcomings. How can you change, Vinny? How can you change if that's what's most important of you to put out there, that I am perfect, even though I know I'm not? And I'm even going to go to the degree of changing myself so that I give the appearance that I'm perfect. I mean, when you peel that away, Vinny, I mean, that's toxic.
Yeah. I mean, what's more difficult to work with, your peers in the business world compared to teenagers in high school?
Great question. Teenagers.
Okay.
They really are. They want to express what they're feeling. They want to express what they're going through. I will tell you that as a corporate leader, what I'm seeing from this new generation of people coming into the corporate space is they want more of an experience than just this. The way I describe it, Vinny, is have a really strong mentor of mine who's a life coach, and he describes this evolution we're going through of, a very successful culture of an industrial age mindset in the workforce, which was very rote. You come in, you do your job well, get to your station, produce, get the results, get the outcomes we're looking for. Don't do a lot of talking. You got to get your work done. And, it served its purpose. We had, a lot of success as a result of it. But we're already into, and it's only going to increase in volume of what's called a co-creating collaborative environment driven by young people coming into the workforce who want more of an experience than just outcomes and results. It's not that they're not dedicated to becoming very strong at their craft. They have that about them. But at the same token, they're moving into this, we want to have an intrinsic experience of what we're involved with while we're working. We need more purpose to what we're doing. And how are we creating that as a corporation? And if we're not on top of that as leaders, if we're not looking at that as a corporation, and at the same token, you can just move over to the athletic side, because the athletic experience has become very work-like, very regimen-like, get really good at your skill, get really good at your craft. The intrinsic part of spirit, connection, relationships, we don't have time for that stuff. There's too much to be done to get the outcomes and results we're looking for. And therefore, this is what we're paying 95% of our attention on. So it's similarities on both sides, but this younger generation, Vinny, is asking us to do more. And I'm excited about that. And that's why I tell you, teenagers are more receptive to this. When you are, right, when you ingrain a habitual response over a long enough period, that almost becomes your automatic, and it does become your auto without you consciously being aware of it. So when you're working with older people, it's not that it's impossible. It's just that there's a lot more work that might need to be done to get them in touch with what their potential is and how they respond to things and how they drain themselves emotionally because of the space that they occupy while they're succeeding. It's not just people who are failing. It's people who are succeeding too.
I mean, let's rewind a little back to your journey, and you're coaching collegiately. Yep. You're starting an insurance company, or you're building an insurance company. I mean, yep. Where was the synergy? I mean, I've talked to a variety of different people that have a love for coaching or a love for sports, and then they also, yep. I mean, looking to make a career in another platform. And it's always that balance of that synergy of, okay, well, I don't want to sell my clients. I don't want to sell my parents. I don't want to sell basically my athletes. I want to keep them two separate things. And what was your process of bringing that synergy between both?
Yeah. So, one of the things that athletics provided to me, and what I was very focused on, was this idea of teammate and team. and in this, mentoring about your bigger, there's something bigger going on. And as a result of that, there was this relationship side that I experienced in growing up in sports in the era that I grew up in, that when I all of a sudden became this leader in starting my own business, I'm going to be very honest, fear initially drove me to say the most important thing is results and outcomes. And that those are the things we needed to focus on most. I don't have time to truly build a personal relation or a deeper relation with my coworkers, because success is driven by hard work, really becoming good at your craft, and and focusing on doing your work and so on and so forth. So here's what I found out, Vinny. As I was watching people perform, I was comparing it to how I was coaching and how my teams were responding to the tasks at hand. And it became very clear to me that, Patrick, what your team is experiencing while they're doing the hard things, what your athletic team is experiencing, why they're doing the hard things, why they're building their skill, and while they're succeeding, is much more joyful, and they're much more passionate, and there's such less apathy than when you go to the office. When you go to the office, Patrick, what you see there is, yes, people doing their work, but the passion, the joy, the excitement, the camaraderie, the winning the successes together, the ability to support and help when someone is struggling. It's this atmosphere of, I just do this because I have to do it. It pays my bills. It puts dinner on the table. It allows me to have things. But any other connection to this is simply Coach Touhey saying, you need to get your job done. Okay. And that can build success if that's what you define success as. And so it's just funny, Vinny, I would leave work to go to basketball practice, and I would say to myself, God, I feel so much better over here than I do over here. And this is my own company, So, I've got a lot invested in it personally, financially, in every other way. Yet, Patrick, why do you love this so much? And I really had to step back and I had to reflect upon, what am I doing differently? And I took these lessons that I've written in this book, Vinny, and I said to myself, Patrick, wake up. You need to take these same things, because there's so many similarities. There's too much of a laser focus you have on the corporate side of things around outcomes and results, and that's all that matters. Winning, 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 winning. And you're forgetting about that these are people. These aren't robots. These aren't mechanical devices. These are people that want to connect. They want to have a bigger meaning and purpose. Here's what I tell corporate leaders, because this is what I know when I learned from the two. The one common denominator is this. Here's what I knew about my basketball team. They loved each other. They loved each other because I intentionally integrated lessons around connecting to each other to develop that environment. I wasn't doing that on the corporate side when I went back to work on that side. And so what I said to myself, even though this may be too lovey-dovey to hear, or doesn't have a place anywhere in the corporate world, or whatever the case may be, which, by the way, is a bunch of garbage. How do I integrate love into the work environment? Because if it's true that love is the most powerful emotion known to humankind, why, as a corporate leader, would you not want to find ways to build that? If people are willing to run through brick walls for each other because they love the person next to them. Why would that not be a strategy? Why would that not be purposefully intentional? And that's the light bulb that went on for me. And when I saw the differences between what my basketball teams are experiencing and what my corporate teams are experiencing, and I changed it.
What, looking back on growing that love between your employees, right? Especially you're talking about employees that sometimes compete against each other, right? What were some of the best activities or best things you did to fester that love and grow that love?
Yeah. So there's three things every human being desires more than anything else. And I don't care who you are. It's love, appreciation, and inclusion. Okay? Those are the three things. So I start from there. How are we going about appreciating each other? And are we taking the time to do that? It's interesting, Vinny, when I do this exercise, how many coworkers or how many teammates never realized that they had that kind of impact on their, when they hear about why they're appreciated so much. Not so much in the results of what they bring in delivering performance, but who they are as a person. And all of a sudden, what happens when you do that, Vinny, is you're building what the word is called is intimacy. Intimacy. So in other words, what it requires is I have to think outside of myself. I have to think about somebody other than me. And boy, does it feel real good to have somebody appreciate me. And I'm that selfish person in the room. I'm the one that only cares about my performance. I'm the one that only cares about my accolades. And I'm watching these people showing appreciation and how they're reaching outside of themselves to do so, and how good that feels to hear. Yet I can't do that. It's only a starting point. It's only a potentially chink and chip away of this hard shell that the only most important thing is me, but they're seeing it and they're witnessing it. Okay. And I will tell you, it's the most powerful feeling you'll have in a room when you have a bunch of people in the same room, coworkers, who are actually going through an exercise of appreciating each other. Okay. You have to also teach selflessness. You have to introduce to everyone the benefits of selflessness, and you have to do it in a way that they can tangibly see that being selfless does come back to a person tenfold when you want someone else to succeed more than yourself. And you have to go through exercises that demonstrate that that's the results time and time again. There's so much out there, Vinny, that you can take from clips and very highly successful people who reinforce this message time and time again. It was as a result of giving back. It was a result of serving. It was as a result of helping someone else become really good at what they do that helped me to become the best in my craft, to become the best at what I do. And so it's not done for the motivation to get back tenfold, but the benefit, if you can realize it and you can help somebody open themselves up to it, is that it comes to you in that manner. And then you break it down to this. I've done exercises with those kind of people and say, how happy are you? I mean, really, how happy are you? And here's what I get back most of the time. When I achieve the outcome, I feel great. As a top salesman in the company this month, baby. Beautiful. Lasts about 48 hours. Because it's lonely celebrating by yourself. And I tell them, how would you like to feel a little more joy about that? How would you like to feel like really happy about that? Well, how could that happen? I can't do any better than I'm doing. Well, you're missing the most important element, inclusion of others. And let me tell you something. When you begin to do that, and you reach that accomplishment together, and especially when you're helping someone else get there, trust me, your joy will go through the roof. So keep doing what you're doing, and you'll never, ever do enough, because you'll always want the next. It'll be the next thing that makes me really happy. It'll be the next thing that really brings me joy. And what you don't realize is you were never meant to do it alone.
Thank you, Patrick, for being here. I want to finish off with this question. You've talked about so much growth that you've gone through, over the years, from alcoholism to learning how to adapt your coaching to coaching in the business world. Where do you see your growth? And also talking about writing a book that we haven't even really got into, but talking about that growth that you plan over the next 5 years. Do you have an idea, a roadmap of where you look to be in 5 years from now?
Yeah, 5 years from now, I really would hope to have, a number of things, a whole bunch of clients that I'm working with to help them, build these very meaningful connections and relationships with their teammates, whether it be on the athletic side or the corporate side. I'd like to see myself, and I will, develop a program that teaches leaders. So it's not just me going in and doing the work, but it's an outline and a game plan. Now, this book is part of that. This book is part of, if the leader were to read this book, they would garner some ideas, and the whole exercises in the book that would help them begin to build this kind of environment and these kinds of relationships and connections. But I want to bring it a step further and actually be able to put out there to the market, whether it be video programs or what have you, about how to teach the leaders to teach these things so that they can replicate it in their companies or within their athletic teams. I really would love to someday have a podcast just like you have, Eddie, and talk a lot about these things and have guests on and do things like that. I see another book for myself in the next 5 years. There's still a lot to be said. There's still more specific things that I believe just out there in the area of leadership, and I'm excited about the prospect of another book. And I want to say this because it's important. I also want to carve out time for my family. There's another lesson for Patrick Touhey, was during the process of reaching for success. There's some changes I would have made in respect to what I missed out on my own family, my own 2 children and my wife. And that's not going to happen in this business that I'm developing right now, that I will make sure that my family has my attention and my time. And that's what's going to be most important, not whether I make trillions of dollars doing what I'm doing.
I know I said that was my last question. I have one more question. Talking about your family, talking about you're still coaching high school football. Not high school basketball, sorry.
Yeah.
And you have your team, your insurance business, and then it sounds like kind of growing your coaching business. So again, a lot of different hats right there.
Yeah.
How do you balance out all the activities that you do? Is there overlap that happens, or is it I'm coach right now, everything else is out of the way, I'm family right now, everything else is the way? How does that work?
Yeah, so great question, and it's a come to Jesus reflection for me. Something has to be let go, and that's a decision that I'm trying to formulate right now, because I can't do all of it and not be focused on this time I want to spend with my family. And so within the next probably 30 to 60 days, it won't be this work. I'll tell you that. because this is what fills my heart. This is what my purpose is here. So it'll be the coaching itself altogether, or my insurance business, believe it or not. And that's something I've sunk my heart and soul into. I mean, it's over 25, 26 years. And so, but it's so highly successful. It's ready to be run by others. It's hard for me to let go of it, Vinny, but I think that's the one that's going to be dropped.
Well, if someone's listening and they're looking to grow personally, learn to hear more about what you have to offer, get your books, I mean, what's the best platform of them connecting, finding more information about you, Patrick?
Yeah. So the book is called Create Forever Teammates, and you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you Google Create Forever Teammates, there's also other book sources in which you can get access to the book. My website is eliteperformancetouhey.com. That's Elite Performance, one word, TOO-E.com. When you go to the website, you'll see information about my book, but there will also be the ability, if you wanted to connect and have me come in and do some work with your teams or your corporations, you could do that. And those would be, I also have a Twitter page, I have a Facebook page and things of that nature. So many different ways to get access to what I offer and what I'm doing. And at this stage right now, this book that I just finished is something that I'm spending a lot of time trying to get out to as many hands as I possibly can, because I do believe it will change. It will significantly change the experiences that people are having, whether it be in their work career or their athletic career.
Well, again, thank you, Patrick, for being here. Everyone listening, all Patrick's information is in the show notes right there. So if you didn't get that, just go in the show notes, go buy the book, go to the platform. You can tell the passion that Patrick has. I mean, if you haven't received that throughout this podcast, you probably weren't listening. Go rewind or go back to the beginning and listen again. So much growth personally himself, and I think one of the key takeaways is treat everyone, be it a teenager, an adult, whoever it might be, as a peer on the same level as yourself. Because I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are. No one is better than anyone else. And if someone treats you that way, it could be in the insurance business, it can be in the lending business, it can be in the real estate business. Do you really want to work with that person? Right. So treat everyone as a peer. We're all in it together. And if you find that right person in your corner, anything is possible. Thank you again, Patrick, for being here. Everyone, again, please subscribe, please share, and go find Patrick. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much, Vinny.